Dynamic processors are used to control the amplitude of audio signals. In professional recording studios utilizing large format analog consoles, outboard dynamic processors are patched into the signal path via the patch bay. When used in digital audio workstations like Pro Tools, dynamic plugins are normally used as inserts. There are several types of dynamic processors, and although each type has a unique function, they all share the common distinction that they affect amplitude. Proper understanding and usage of dynamic processors is essential to obtaining professional results. When used correctly, the listener should not even be aware of their presence. Basically, compressors make loud sounds quieter and quiet sounds louder, effectively reducing the overall dynamic range of the signal. Two consequences of using compressors are reducing the dynamic range too much, which will tend to diminish the musical feeling and expression of a performance, and they will increase the noise floor of the recording. Let's take a look at the parameters used to customize the way a compressor reacts. The ratio determines the amount of gain reduction or compression in decibels, or dB, once the signal exceeds the threshold. For example, a ratio of 3:1 will result in an increase of 1 dB of output for every 3 dB of input signal that exceeds the threshold. The threshold sets the level in dB at which gain reduction will begin. The attack defines the amount of time, in milliseconds, that it takes the compressor to reach its maximum level of gain reduction. The release controls the amount of time, in milliseconds, that it takes the compressor to stop working once the signal drops below the threshold. The makeup gain is used to raise the output level, in dB, after a signal's amplitude has been reduced from compression. De-essers are frequency-dependent compressors typically used on vocals or dialogue to reduce sibilant frequencies produced by letters such as S, C, and T. When attack and release times are set to fast and ratios and thresholds are set higher, compressors are said to be acting as limiters. With attack and release times set medium to slow, and higher ratios and lower thresholds are set, compressors are said to be acting as leveling amplifiers. Compressors can also increase the perceived loudness of a sound without increasing its peak level, often resulting in a tighter sound. Gates, often commonly referred to as noise gates, make quiet sounds quieter by only allowing signals above the user-defined threshold to pass through. When the signal passes through by reaching a set threshold, the gate is said to be open. When the signal level is below the threshold, the gate is closed and cannot pass through. Also, it is important to understand that noise gates do not eliminate noise. They just hide it when the gate is closed and let it through when the gate is open. Let's take a look at the parameters used to customize the way a gate reacts. The threshold is the amplitude, expressed in decibels, at which the gate opens or closes. The attack is the time it takes in milliseconds for the gate to fully open once the signal exceeds the threshold level. The release is the time it takes in milliseconds for the gate to fully close once the signal falls below the threshold level. The range provides control over the amount of attenuation to signals below the threshold level, allowing a predetermined amount of signal through when the gate is closed. Expanders are often thought of as the opposite of compressors because they essentially expand the dynamic range by making loud sounds louder and quiet sounds quieter. Like compressors, an expander has an adjustable threshold and ratio. Whereas compression takes effect whenever the signal goes above the threshold, expansion affects the signal below the threshold. Signal levels below the threshold are expanded downward by the specified ratio. For example, if the ratio is 2:1 and the signal drops 3 dB below the threshold, the signal level will be reduced to 6 dB below the threshold. In closing, it's important to remember that achieving professional results with dynamic processors will require some experimentation and, most of all, diligent practice. A useful technique is to compare the processed and unprocessed signals used by the bypass feature of the plugin to temporarily disable the effect.